a sort of belated second half of Hod My Jacket. I'm sorry to everybody whose transmission got interrupted. My phone battery overheated in the sun and the phone shut down before it burst into flames. So it wasn't UK spooks, it wasn't interference, it was just a hot battery. So apologies for that. Welcome back, Nori. And
Thank you, Gordon. Good to be back.
I gather we've had some interesting
Aye,
comments about what happened in the first part of the show.
it was just we were going on to the Salva meeting at the United Nations. Remember that, Gordon? It wasn't that long ago. And some people got in touch with me. I'll just name check them. You and James, Mary Beaton, Leslie, and Asher are saying that they're having, let's say, suspicions about the role of Craig Murray. They come to this point, and I'll get it properly. Craig Murray stood for the Workers' Party of Great Britain, a British party, Great Britain in the title.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have thought this was pro-Scottish or anything like that. But the point of that was he was with George Galloway. Galloway is another media darling, and he was a Brexiteer who worked alongside Nigel Farage. So with all those connections and links and stuff, they're worried that he might not be the guy that he appears to be.
No, that's all fair comment, and all those things that you just said are all true, or they were true a few years ago. That's certainly true. Maybe I can clarify what Craig Murray is actually doing there, because he's not of an official delegation. Craig Murray is retired, as you know, as a former British diplomat, and what he's offered to do off his own bat and under his own steam with his own money is to go to New York and to talk to his former diplomatic contacts in other UN countries in order to get them to support Scotland's request for decolonisation. So he's really, I think, just offering whatever experience and contacts he has to help support the cause. But he's not an official, he's not a part of Salvo's operation officially, as far as I'm aware. And he's, I think, just doing this because he's retired and he wants to help. But his background is not a secret. He was and is probably still very much a socialist at heart, and I don't mind that. Whether it was with the the Workers' Party of Great Britain or not, well, that was years ago. And he did campaign with Galloway, and Galloway was linked to Farage, so I guess there's an indirect link there. But I wouldn't worry about Craig Murray. He's not the person who's doing deals over there. He's just trying to help out. That's basically it.
From Greg MacArthur, he's asking, what was it again? How do you know there's a D notice on the press for a particular story you covered? I'm not privy to this.
Well, D notices are often announced by the United Kingdom when they don't want the press to publish information which they think is compromising security or the UK's constitutional security. And so I had said in an earlier broadcast that I thought there might have been a D notice because of the complete blanket non-coverage of the SSR.
Yeah, of course.
There were a few lines in the National, so I think the National perhaps published just a thing that said it was happening, but that was all that came out. But people were mystified why something with so much important news in it never made it onto the mainstream media. And I suspect, never prove it, but I suspect a D notice was quietly issued to say, don't talk about this. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
No, to be quite honest, Gordon, I totally agree with you. I think it's obvious, even if I don't have proof, but why didn't they report on this amazing piece of news, which incidentally was recorded in other parts of the world? So why wasn't it recorded here? You can only imagine that the government was telling the press, look, back off. This is a hot potato for us.
And I mean, even the National, which claims to support independence, only published a few lines about it. They are supposedly independent, if you like, of the unionist side of the press, but they're the only newspaper in Scotland which says that they support independence, and they only wrote lines. But we have to remember that they're a sister paper to the Glasgow Herald, or as the Herald, which is the most unionist paper I know of. So I wouldn't expect anything of them than to try and black out the media coverage completely
Yeah,
on them. It's too damaging to them.
it really is. What was the other thing? We were going to talk about Flamingo Land, and we talked about the SNP getting a bit of a bloody nose last night. There's
Yeah.
still stuff going on in the papers about this. Will John Swinney resign? Should he resign? Do the SNP need new leadership? Um, where do we, I don't know, Gordon. I don't know. If you were to ask me who's a suitable replacement for John Swinney, I wouldn't know who to say.
No, I mean, who would take his place? Who would actually be better than John Swinney out of the current crop of politicians that have been elected to, the SNP government or even SNP MSP for that matter? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
me
Even
neither.
Cherry was saying that it's time that Swinney got off the fence and actually started campaigning for independence. And she actually put it down, the loss, down to the fact that the I word, as people are now calling it, wasn't
Yeah.
included in any of the campaigning literature or the campaign. Maybe that's the case. But then again, yeah, the SNP doesn't actually have a plan for independence. It's not published anything. It's not said what the mechanism is or the process that they would favour. Just silence. It's radio silence. As you said the other week, it's tumbleweed.
Well,
Nothing.
worse than that, Gordon, they've got no view on the UN decolonisation route. They've got
No.
no view on setting up a constitution, referendum constitution, if you want to call it that, where all the supporters of independence want to talk and
Yeah.
galvanise.
Yeah.
They've given us free ports. I've just had an email from Kate Forbes trying to justify the new builds here. It's
Yeah.
vacuous nonsense, Gordon. It's as if they don't know how to take the next step forward. Honestly, I'm giving them credit for something that maybe they're just
Well,
imbeciles.
when you say they're giving us free ports, they're really forcing us to accept free ports, which are
Yes.
are a British imposition.
Yeah.
And Kate Forbes has got a bucket of green paint out and painted it nice and green.
I know.
And so we're having green free ports,
Yeah.
which makes it sound very healthy and wholesome, but basically it's still vast tracts of Scottish industrial landscape that have been given over to foreign corporations to do with as they will, with
Yeah.
low taxation and low, what would you say, low oversight. So they're going to get away with a lot. They're probably not going to be paying anything like minimum wages,
Yeah.
and they're going to do what they like. And that really is not a gift. That's an
No.
imposition.
It is.
You
You're
know,
right, Gordon. I stand corrected. You're absolutely bang on. The thing about Kate Forbes, we know from the figures last time she stood here, she got a pretty good majority. But
yeah,
I can tell you now that all these meetings that are going on there's a meeting next week about pumping water out of Loch Ness to a pumping station. And we're gathering round and she's not there. They've had meetings up at Cartility up the road for wind farms. She's not been there. We've got all these houses getting built. She appeared once and she never came back again. There's windmills going on all over the place. I can tell you, Gordon, if on the back of last night's result, I don't think she'll retain her seat. I don't think
well,
she's going to get back in.
do you feel sad about that? We'll get
No,
the smallest violin out.
I don't. I don't. Hell mend you. You know, we've been trying to tell you for a long time. Get
Yeah.
independence, front, middle, centre, wherever you want, top, bottom. It's got to be there because that's what 56% of us want now. I believe
Yeah.
it's higher, Gordon. This is a poll from somewhere, and if it's not a Scottish poll, you can be sure they're weighting it down a bit. So if it's 56, read 66 into that.
Well, you're right, because the latest poll that I saw, I think it was yesterday, is still weighted as though it was 2014.
Yeah,
And that means that they are presuming the same old fossils that were voting for the Union are alive when they're actually putting up the daisies somewhere.
I
And
know.
a a whole lot of new young voters have come in who don't like the union and do want a change and do want the end of the union. So no, it's not representative. If it's at, what did you say, about 56%,
Yeah.
and it's weighted at 2014 levels, then it's
Yep.
going to be 10% higher than that.
Of course it is.
So yeah, the polls look extremely good. I was reading Peter Bell's column this morning. He publishes a blog every day, and I know Peter Bell's not everybody's cup of tea, but sometimes he says something which I think is really important. And one of the things he said in his column this morning was that politicians, including Scottish politicians, are not scared of the electorate, because you know how the electorate are
Yeah.
the ones that are to be able to decide whether they get elected or not.
Yeah.
They're not scared of us. What they're scared of is the other political parties, and it's them that they are trying to beat. And they
Yeah.
really understand what it is that we want because it doesn't fit with what they want. In other words, they're totally detached from what the people want. They just expect us to vote for them out of habit
Yeah.
so that they can beat the other parties. And that, I think, is largely true.
I
They
think
live
that's
in
a
a
good point.
they live in a little bubble where they're just competing against other parties for power, not for
Mm.
independence, for power. And it's the power that they're after. And I think he's right.
I think he is right, Gordon. I think there's been we keep saying taking the eye off the wheel. They're not looking in the right direction, and
Yeah.
it always feels like they're trying to protect their own position. Even when I never watch it, but I did yesterday because there was an election coming on just to see what First Minister's questions would be like. And
Oh, yeah.
John Swinney's just acting as the honest broker. Our numbers tally up, and we're doing our best for the people of Scotland. And if you've did it, and our numbers are better than England, and it's all a numbers game. But when you step out of that theatre, because that's all it is, and you go into the real world and you look out your front window, you see a different reality to the one they're talking about in there. Yes, we need to get a proper health service. But I can tell you, Gordon, we use the health service quite a lot in our house. And when we go to hospital, none of them are saying, yeah, good on the SNP. They're run off their feet, these doctors and nurses.
Yeah.
It's not a great system. Just because you say it's better than England and the stats are better and your targets are better, it doesn't mean to say it's working great. There's a lot more work to do there.
The trouble is that the Scottish NHS succeeds despite the activities of politicians, not because of them.
Correct.
And you know that our NHS funding is directly linked via the Barnett formula to what England spends on its NHS, which is chronically underfunded. So our NHS is getting a little bit of extra funding, but it's coming from other places where it should also be spent. And so there are
Yeah.
things that are happening which should be in order to keep the NHS a little bit ahead of what's happening in England, but not much. And this is a constant battle between the SNP on one side and the unionist parties on the other. Say things are great in Britain. The SNP is going, no, but they're better here. Not by much, just a little bit, but they're better here because of us.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. You know,
No.
just playing with statistics doesn't actually help anybody other than the
No.
party helps. And
I'll give
that's
you an
where,
example, Gordon. I'll give you, for example, nurses in Scottish hospitals have to take an hour off their lunch and they don't get paid for it. More often than not, they have to work through that lunch. So therefore, the Scottish government are not paying them that hour's work. That is a
yeah,
fact. It's a small thing, but it would go a long way if you actually address that and says, look, you'll get your hour paid. We're just going to pay you that hour because most times, 8 out of 10, you're working through somebody comes into accident emergency, you're in an operating theatre, or you're doing something else.
yeah.
You're getting that. When you get an hour taken off your wages in this cost of living crisis, it's a lot. There's tiny wee things like that you could be working at and trying to fix, but they're not. They're just thinking, we'll put some money in there, we'll put a lot of money in there, and hopefully, with all that money, it'll run fabulously. But it doesn't. It doesn't.
You notice that, the mainstream media, when they talk about the cost of living, they talk about it being a crisis as though it just kind of happens. It's not their fault. Right? It's not the government's what just happened, and we're just trying to. Well, it's happened because, well, what pushes the prices up? One of the key things is the cost of energy. Energy is used by businesses which manufacture goods, which pack food, which sift vegetables, cut meat. All of these things take power. When the cost of power goes up, the cost of that food goes up, the cost of your clothing goes up, the cost of your car goes up, you name it. And that cost of living crisis is being driven largely by energy prices, which the British government has told the energy producers they can raise to an unrealistically stupid level.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't done that, there wouldn't be a cost of living crisis at all, I don't think. I think the cost of living inflation would be far, far lower. If only they had said, no, you're not raising energy prices past there and no further. That's all you get. But no, they didn't do that at all. They set, they level way up here, so it was very easy for them to say, "Oh, the energy companies are keeping to our energy cap," but we set the energy cap away, price cap away up there.
Yeah,
so it's good for the government, but it causes a cost of living crisis, and it's not a crisis; it's a manufactured situation which is making us poorer, making us desperate. And more hopeful that the politicians will find a way to sort it, which of course they won't.
It gets back to this, Gordon, this criteria of libertarianism, and I'll push this and I'll say it and say it. Once we start to understand how these neo-fascists, let's call them that because that's what they are, and it's not just Scotland that's happening, it's happening all over the world, but we've got them on our doorstep because we've got big money men interested in oil and, as you rightly say, our energy, because that energy can keep them wealthy. Broadband as well can keep them very wealthy. All those things that we kind of need now for a modern society, they are going to get their hands on and try and control us by it. And the reason they want us to say nothing and do nothing is because that's when they know they've got us. When we start getting off our seats, Gordon, and going into our communities and going to the town halls and getting people together, getting Facebook groups back up again and saying, we demand more, let's all come together, then you'll start seeing political parties joining in. Because I'll tell you why. Right now, there's meetings all over the place here about new builds, windmills, you name it. Everybody's really coming out into the town halls. And guess who's there? The Tories, the Lib Dems, and the Labour Party. Guess who's not there? Guess who's not there?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing. When they get the Tories there, you can ask them. And when they come up with spurious things, they're ignored. They're just ignored. So is the Liberal Democrat. He's ignored. Just because he says this is a terrible thing and all the rest of it. It's his basic philosophy of economics. He agrees with it, but he's there fronting up saying he doesn't. Chancers. But that's what we're getting. We're getting Hobson's choice presented to us, Gordon. At these meetings in the town halls, we have to take the agenda ourselves and get politics out of it and say what is good for us and our communities. Is it a place where we can grow up safe, without fires burning from these battery farms, without transmission wires going over, frying us with the microwaves coming off them, and these block houses, Lego houses, depriving us of light, colour, and our beautiful countryside. What do we want?
And they're not solving the homelessness crisis because they're not providing homes that people can afford. Because they don't want to provide homes that people can afford. They want to make money.
Correct.
But you've got lots of it. And those are the very same people investing in all the stuff that's being built around the bayou. So that ain't going to happen. You said something a minute ago that caught my attention, which was we should keep the politics out of it. Well, yes, but I would be more specific. I would say let's keep the politicians out of it. Nicola Sturgeon, although I've criticised her on many occasions, said one thing that I really, really agree with in her entire career. When she said, accidentally perhaps, the truth, she said that independence will not be won by politicians, it'll be won by the people.
Yeah. It's true. She was right. Absolutely bang on.
So there you go. I'm picking the phone up here because, believe it or not, the battery's getting warm again.
Oh my goodness. Maybe I should do it from this side and you drive round a wee corner or something. I don't know.
Bring the phone out the window here. Anyway,
Oh,
listen,
God.
right,
got
the
the
phone's
rain.
going to jiggle about. I'm going to take the rubber casing off this phone and let the heat out a wee bit. That's
That's what I
actually
do with mine. I take the casing off it. Look,
it's
take it out of there.
red hot. Just off. Let it cool down a bit.
Uh,
We were going to talk briefly about Flamingo Land and what's
oh
happening
yeah.
with that.
Right. There's a lot of Gordon. There's a lot of confusion over this. Who's given the authority to this? It's not the SNP. They're just doing what they have to do. It's in the rules. They've got no control over it. This is utter gash because you can come out and say to the people, "We don't want this." You can support the people who actually vote for you and give them. Is that your? What's happening to it, Gordon?
Nothing. You still there? I've
I
set
don't
the
know.
I've set the air conditioning to freezing.
Right. Where was I? The
Flamingo.
SNP, Flamingo Land.
Yeah, Flamingo Land.
Flamingo Land has been there for 10 years. 10 long years, and the people have said no, no, no. SEPA, the Ramblers Association, all kinds of people have said don't want it. It is not going to make the area any better or brighter. The jobs aren't there. There's going to be strain on the roads and on the countryside. It's a non-starter. When you've got all that written down in front of you, why on earth do you say, oh, we'll give them one more chance and we'll put 49 stipulations in it? Why didn't you put those 49 stipulations in before? Why are you giving them more wriggle room? Why can't SNP just say, no, I'm sorry, we're in charge of Scotland, you're not getting in here, we don't want it, bye, goodbye and good riddance.
No, it would have been quite easy for the Scottish Government to say to Flamingo Land, you can't build there. But there are lots of other sites in Scotland that would like to have Flamingo Land where it would be more suitable, and we can suggest some sites to you right now. That way, the investment would have come in, the place would have been built in the right sort of location, and nobody would care. Instead of that, the SNP has decided that after 3 tries of trying to bulldoze something into into an area of Scotland where nobody wants it, where the experts are going to damage the environment, where the local authority doesn't want it, the people don't want it, where it's not going to generate many jobs, they still think that after 3 tries, they should step in and make it happen. Why not step in and make it happen somewhere else where it is more suited? That would be the obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
Why does nobody in the SCP talk about that? It's the most obvious thing in the world. Just move the location to somewhere else where it's not going to do the same harm, and where it might even provide some jobs in an area where there aren't any at all.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
what than it, near Ravenscraig. Just
Well,
turn
one
away.
thing that's been put out, Gordon, about that, on that very subject you're just talking about, why not put it somewhere else? Loch Lomond is full of fresh water. And a lot of people are worried that when Flamingo Land get in there and after 2 years, they sell their own land. They sell the land that they bought, they were taken over. And who did they give it to? A big water company. It's not, and I tell you this, Gordon, because Ifian Rogers, a Welsh friend of mine, when I was on his podcast, he's been on my show as well. He was saying, no, they've done it. They've come over to my country, Wales, taken all our water, and now they're selling it back to us 6 times more expensive.
Yeah, just like our. Yep, that's colonialism. You take the natural resources from the natives, and you sell them back at 6 times the cost. That's colonialism. That's exactly what they do. You mentioned earlier on that there was a plan afoot to pipe water from Loch Ness. Was that
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Ron?
There's a meeting there's a meeting next week to take water up the hill from Loch
Yeah.
Ness up the hill. Where's it going to go after that? We don't know. Where's it going to
Is
go?
this
What? We
is it
don't.
for pumped storage?
They
Is it for
say pump
pumped storage?
storage, Gordon, but there's a hell of a lot of work going on up at Doors. They've bought over the hotel. This hotel was a brilliant, first class, almost Michelin star place, bought over by the same company. They've bought over all the piers and the dockyard, if you like. Nobody knows what's going on there. And now
No.
there's a meeting.
Do you know, Nori, what firm it is that has started this proposal to pipe water out of the loft? Anybody know who they are?
We don't yet, Gordon. This is what the meeting is on next week about, and I'll be going to that meeting, so I will be able to feed back directly next week, next Friday.
Cool. Is this a local authority meeting, or is this something that's been organised by?
It's just local people. It's just the people.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Because that is what's going to stop things like that from happening. And it's also what's going to make things like independence happen. Nicola Sturgeon was right. It's the people of Scotland who make independence happen when we're ready to do it. It's not the politicians. And she accidentally let slip a truth, which is the politicians have zero in independence.
She did.
They don't. And she let that slip.
But the thing is, Gordon, at some point we're going to be we are battle weary. I remember you and Kennedy saying to me, Scotland is on antidepressants right now. We're all like fed up, kind of get ourselves out of the bit. Because, and here's the thing, we've all been lazy. We've all left it to somebody else to do something about it. Now, if you do it up off your backside and chat your next door neighbour and say, look, have you got the same problems as I have? My next door neighbour, I found out, has got 3 jobs. 3 jobs, Gordon. Yep. She's out in the morning, she's cleaning the bakery, she's away doing cleaning houses, and she's down at the Fiddlers, the local pub here, cleaning that out as well, to make ends meet. She's not alone. Now, when you meet these people, when you meet them, Gordon, you share your stories, and you tell them that you're not alone. And when people find out they're not alone, they come together, and they tell more. And you know what? If we're making something or we're growing things in the garden, we'll put something over the fence. You know, there's some tatties out the garden, keep you going. And you know what? That breaks the ice. And that shows that we're all in this together. The people, Nicola Sturgeon's right. All the people have got to come together at some point over one issue, maybe poverty, austerity, or a bigger thing. Let's get the indie groups up again, Gordon. Let's get the Facebook groups up again. Let's connect with each other, because that way it will take the attention of the political parties, and you bet your bottom dollar they will be looking over at us, taking over. And then at that point, we control them again, not them controlling us.
Well, that's what we do. Because what usually happens with ideas like this is when the public come out in force like that and demand it, one party will come forward and say they thought of it, that they were always going to do that. Glad that the people have come forward and supported their idea. They'll make it look like it was their idea all along. And then to get elected again and to beat the other parties. So we know how that will go. But one of the things I was just thinking about, if there really are 60% of voting age Scots in favour of independence, how many people would that be? Because during the last referendum, there was something like nearly 4 million people on the electoral register.
Yeah.
Now, 60% of 4 million is well over 2.5 million people, right? As far as I can remember from my... But it certainly is about 2.5 million people, and that's far more than voted to stay in the Union. According to the figures we were given in 2014, 2.2 million people voted no. 1.456 or something voted yes. But if it's now been completely reversed and it's increased now, then why are the political parties sitting on their hands? 60% of us actually want independence, and it's showing in every single poll growing. That was the benefit Why is it
I,
gone quiet?
well, I tell you, I think I know the answer, Gordon. I think there's the Scotland Act. The fact that the Parliament isn't a Scottish Parliament, it's an extension of Westminster. So we're working
Yeah.
within the confines of that. And every time we try to come out of it, like I remember Hamza Youssef um, brought in an independence minister. You know
No,
what
yeah.
happened to him? What
Jamie
happened to him?
Hepburn.
Yeah,
Jamie Hepburn, nobody's ever heard of him, and nobody's heard of him since.
but
He
you could see where he
disappeared.
was trying to go, what direction he was trying to go. But he made a complete dog's breakfast of it, because he didn't know where to come on. He didn't know what media to turn to. He didn't know where to get the message out. So maybe it was a bit of a con, maybe a bit of a smokescreen. But you can see
It
what the
was.
Westminster bosses said. Get him out. Get Hamza Youssef out. And he spoke too much about Gaza. That's another red line. Get
But they
out.
didn't like.
So here's the thing, Gordon. If you're with ambitions to get Scotland to independence, you must step out of that parliament. You must do it out with that scene. You must create a convention with like-minded people. Now, if you're, and I think it's more than 2.5 million, Gordon. I had figures before, but I think it's 2.7 or 2.8. It's a lot of people wanting independence. A lot of
Yeah.
people. And when you find them, and it's not hard to look, they're everywhere. They're in every town, city, and village and place you can imagine. When you tap into that, you will get the votes and the numbers you need. But if you're always looking, I think you said it earlier with Peter Bell, he's always looking at a political party. I think the SNP are always looking over the shoulder at what might happen to them from Westminster. Will they get kicked out? Will they be slandered? Will they be, will some dirt be thrown at them? Who knows? I don't know. But they're in the
Well, of course.
system.
Yeah, I mean that's a risk that all politicians run when they get elected. That some deep dark secret in their past will be unearthed, and used against them to keep them from doing whatever it is their voters wanted. That's always the case, but that's why you need politicians who are prepared to take some risks. They're not scared
Why?
of that kind of thing.
I know. But at the end of the day, Gordon, we're wondering why the SNP got a hammering last night. And we've identified three ports, SEZs, Flamingo Land.
Oh yeah.
No, the GRR stuff, the bottle return scheme. I mean, if you could
According
take
to Keir Starmer, according to Keir Starmer, we're going to get 6 more nuclear-powered submarines on the Clyde.
that,
That's what we need.
that's the
That'll
cherry
really
on
help.
top.
Yeah, that'll create some jobs in the public sector. Not for us, but for presumably submariners from the Royal Navy. But apart from that, nobody.
Nobody. It's a point, Gordon. You're making the point for me because if we've got all this coming towards us, but we've got 2.7 million people wanting independence on the back of polls that have come over the last wee while. If you've got that amount of people behind a political party, you don't start getting 7,000s, you get 70,000s if you're saying the right thing. You
You
get a
just
lot more.
you just actually gave us the reason why the SNP has failed. Because what you said there was we've got 2.7 million people wanting independence. How could the SNP fail? Well, it's easy because they're ignoring the 2.7 million people and what they want. And because of that, they failed. And because they didn't do anything about that, they failed and they'll continue to fail. And I would predict that if they keep doing this next year, they'll be out of office. And that is when people power will take to the streets because the 2.7 million people who want independence are going to go, hold on a minute, the SNP's just got themselves booted out of their own parliament because they took their eye off the ball. It's time we took over. We'll take to the streets, we'll take this forward, and we'll get it done. And that is pretty much the only way it's going to happen. It might take 100,000 people surrounding Holyrood and not letting any of the politicians in it, or
Mhm.
something else, really grab the attention. But it's not going to be the politicians. Sorry, I just don't see it.
I know, Gordon, but if we come to this impasse in 2026, and we
Yeah,
see the SNP, this for some people still, even after last night's debacle in Hamilton, if we still
yeah,
see them uh, dwindling, and Reform are coming in, and Labour are coming in, we might have to suffer hellishly. And when it get, you think this is bad. You think this is bad. When it comes to Reform and the Labour Party and the Tories, maybe in a coalition in Holyrood, then
yeah.
you have not seen it in yet. The time to complain and get out off your backsides is now. You must be able to change that and get the 2.7 million of us together. Because if we can do that, we might manage to drag, kicking and screaming, the SNP back over to what it once was, maybe 10, 20 years ago. But in
Maybe,
its
yeah. But maybe they'll be on help, Nori. Maybe they just can't be cured. They might be terminal. They might just have got themselves into this mindset and now will not come out of it. In which case, we need a new party or a non-party party, if you like. A
correct.
People of Scotland Liberation Party, for example, which only focused on liberating the country and nothing else. And if you have that clarity of vision and you say, this is what we are going to do if you elect us, people know what they're voting for
Mhm.
and they know that that was what will happen. Not, well, we might pursue negotiations, we might ask for a Section 30 order if the lovely British government is nice enough to give us one. No, you need somebody who's prepared to say it. And we will declare independence if we are elected in majority. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
And that's what will happen next year. If anything is to be moved forwards, even a millimetre, you need a
I
government
know.
which literally not cooperate with the United Kingdom in any way. If we have a Scottish government, we're not going to cooperate with you. We are going to take this country to independence, start negotiating, because we are just simply not getting involved with you guys anymore. We're not obeying your rules, we're not obeying your laws, and we're not going to take our orders from you anymore. What are you going to do about it? You need to actually cause a political crisis or nothing
Yes.
changes.
Yes.
It has
And
to come to a head.
one of the things I remember talking about this in Cali on radio with an academic about where Scotland is. He says you've got to take the bull by the horns. You're never given anything. You've got to take it, right? So what you should say is go down to Westminster, John Swinney. Never mind going down there talking about can we get a penny more for our austerity off the budgets and can we get a wee bit more? And yes, please, sir. None of that garbage. You hold all the aces, John Swinney. Now this was been told to me 2 years ago, Gordon. What you got to go down? You've got to say to Keir Starmer, you've got two choices, mate. We can do this like a velvet divorce. We can get a referendum, and we can share out things until you're on your feet, and we can still sell you things, and we can still trade with you, and we can have a really amicable arrangement after independence. Or you can take
Yeah.
option B. You get damn all. You get nothing. If you're going to hinder and stop us, by jinx, when it happens, you're getting nothing. These are the messages, subliminal or vocal overt
Yeah.
messages that you have to put to them. Never mind standing there. I'm going to write a letter to Sir Keir Starmer. This is outrageous. I'm going to send a letter to him. What does that matter? Where does that get you, Gordon? It doesn't even get the millimetre you're talking about.
No.
And you've got to
No.
you've got to take it. What I'm saying is you've got to take it, Gordon. You can't wait for it to be given to you.
No, I think what you're saying is basically correct, Nori. Whoever we elect in 2026 needs to be able, whoever's leading that government, let's assume for a moment that it's not the SNP or any of the unionist parties that does this, that new leader goes to London and talks face to face with Starmer and says, look, these are the two options here. We've got 2.7 million people here who want independence. They're not going to take any rubbish. Either we do this the nice way, where we chat about it and we decide,
A
we're going to
velvet
keep,
divorce.
we have a new trade agreement between the two countries and we
Mhm.
continue happily, or you get nothing and we leave. And if you want any of our stuff, you'll need to pay full market price for it. Take
Yep.
your pick.
Yeah.
And that is an ultimatum you can make when you have a position of power. But you need to be in the position of power. And that means not the SNP's current administration. It has to be
Yeah.
somebody.
But if I was John Swinney, if it was me, leader of the SNP, I would be looking at these polls and going, "There's another one. That's it." And I'd be making it so difficult for Keir Starmer to come up here, and he couldn't fly me down to London to talk about how Scotland's going to cope with this and cope with that. The way we cope with stuff is by doing it ourselves, getting our independence. That's what I'd be saying to Keir Starmer. And if he didn't like it, he could bloody lump it. You
Here's the
can't be
thing, Norrie.
scared of people on this occasion, Gordon. You can't be frightened of them.
I just realised, Norrie, that I misspoke there. What our new pro-independence government, which is not the SNP, should do is not go to London to talk to Starmer, but ask him to come up here to talk to us on our territory.
I tell you what, I'm
Not
waiting for, God.
we don't
Yes,
go cap. We're not going cap in hand anymore. If you want to talk to us in a civilized way about ending the union in a nice civilized manner with a new trade deal at the end of it,
yep,
come up here and talk to us. Otherwise, all deals are off. And you will
correct.
pay
You,
full price for all the resources you're currently plundering and selling to other people.
well, when I
That's
was
it.
speaking to Sarah Salyers, I positioned Keir Starmer having to go to the UN to justify that Scotland wasn't a colony. And I thought he would have a hell of a hard time. But he wouldn't do that. He'd send one of his lackeys, some junior minister, over to deal with it. It doesn't matter. You still haven't got an argument against us. And if the UN see an empty chair where Keir Starmer isn't, and he's got somebody else in there, then the game's a bogey, Gordon. You are up.
It really just shows you that would show the United Nations that the UK doesn't respect them in any way. That they would
Yeah.
send a Mickey Mouse delegation over there uh, to just be there, with seat warmers. They wouldn't even take it seriously. Something seriously at the UN,
They
then
wouldn't.
you know what does that tell the UN? And remember, the UN. Everybody says, oh, the UK can use its veto to torpedo any Scottish attempt at the UN. That's not true.
No,
There is
no.
no veto in decolonisation. It's dealt with by an
Correct.
entirely different committee of the UN. It's not subject to Security Council vetoes. Never,
Yes.
never will be, for a very good reason. And it's because it prevents the country that is colonised from preventing the freedom of the country that's been colonised.
Yes. It shores up their argument, doesn't it? Obviously, because you're not there. And can I tell you one thing, Gordon, that happened to me on Wednesday? I was in a pub in Port Royal, full of tourists, but we sat down with 6 German guys. They were biking through Scotland. I was just asking, we were asking about football, and they came to Scotland on the back of the Scotland Tartan Army got over there for the Euros, and fallen in love with Scotland and the people and stuff. And then we got into like kind of political stuff, and they said, "But you're all lazy. Why don't you just get your independence? Why don't you just stamp for it?" And I'm saying, well, we've taken the legal routes and we're taking the political routes. Now it might be the people's route is next. And he goes, one thing you should remember is Germany is behind you. Germany will support you. I can assure you, even the German police still have fond memories. To get the German police on your side is amazing. They are the most brutal, awful
Motivation.
people. But he was saying, but hurry up and get your independence because your roads are terrible. Your accommodation is all crumbling. Your country is a mess. Why should good people have a mess? And I'm thinking, you're right, mate. You're right. We need more of these guys in Scotland charging up the campaign for us. But
Yeah.
we're all battle weary, Gordon. We're all like, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm knackered. I'm spent. I'm skint. And we can't do it. We've got to have one last push. One last push, Gordon, is what we need. And we must do it.
There's something all politicians tend to remember, and that is when people get desperate enough, when they've got nothing left to lose, they will rebel, they'll revolt, and they'll take to the streets because they don't have anything to lose. They've been
Correct.
made as poor as they can be, and they have nothing left. There's no
Mhm.
more that their so-called British government can take away from them, so we might as well fight back, you know. And if that means taking to the streets and, you know, surrounding Parliament buildings or surrounding government offices in Glasgow or whatever it is, or forming a human chain around
Mhm.
Faslane or whatever the action is, that's what will happen when people get desperate enough. When they get
And
sick enough of having nothing and getting nothing and being treated like third class citizens. We're not even second class. We're an afterthought.
yeah, you're right. And I think that is happening. We're seeing this kind of rise in agitation and
Yeah.
annoyance with the prices. £70 for a basket of food in the co-op, Gordon. 70. You're getting nothing. Maybe a bag of tatties, some beans, and some other bits and pieces. £70. It's becoming like the Weimar Republic back in the days in Germany. But here's the thing:
Yes.
um, if we I say this, sometimes things have to be said that are in the past have been, you can't say that. That's no. But UDI, Universal Declarations of Independence, that is when the people start revolting and the people give their reasons out with politics. Now, it can be a dangerous route. It has been shown in the past, Gordon, that warfare, arms are brought into this, but it could be a bespoke UDI that we're talking about there, where the people, 2.5 million of us, 2.75 million of us, are saying, this far and no more, we are claiming our country back. And we do that
Yeah.
by UDI. And there's no
I
fighting, and there's no political agreement, there's nothing. It's just the people taking their country back.
I do not disagree with UDI, but there's a reason why the legalities have to be going through the UN first, because if we have the backing of the UN for decolonization, then any UDI, independence that is made has then got the backing of the United Nations. You know, Scotland's applied. Process doesn't happen. If the
Yeah,
United Kingdom does not cooperate with decolonisation, then that kind of action is perfectly legitimate.
of
Take
course
to
it
the
is.
streets, a unilateral declaration of independence in our own parliament. That can be done, but it's important to get the legal underpinnings and the backing of another few countries in the UN first before you do that.
I
And
think we
that's when
will. Yeah, I think we will. I think the arguments against us are futile, and this is probably our best chance ever if we do it right. If we can get the
yeah,
right people speaking to the right committees and getting the decision quite quickly. If that doesn't happen quickly, Gordon, more and more people are going to get poorer, weaker, and really on death's door. I can maybe wager that as well because people are struggling right now, really struggling. If we get our budget for health cut and then we don't get any free prescriptions, for example, you could see a hell of a lot of people becoming really, really unwell. That's when we are at our weakest. We can't afford to wait till then, Gordon. We've got to do it while we're all at least healthy. At least we've got something to fight for. When you've got something to fight for, you're as
yeah,
healthy as anything because your mind takes over your body. And you know you have to. I've got kids. I've got a daughter. I don't want her to follow in my footsteps and have a life full of anxiety over payments and debt and all kinds of stuff. So we
yeah.
have to do it now. Even if we're getting a bit old and we're getting a bit tired and we're getting a bit battle weary, and I know we're all on antidepressants, but what if we got together and started doing something? You know, it would galvanize us. And all it takes sometimes is one group starting, like Salvo did 2 years ago, and look where they are now. So you could be sitting at home thinking, "I've got a thing. I want to do this. Do it, and see how far it
Yeah.
takes you. Do it. Get out there. Do things. If you're
Form,
unhappy with the houses getting built in your area, complain. Set up a
inform,
Facebook page.
Form local groups, form local independence groups, ad hoc. Have meetings in your living room. Decide what
Yep.
you're going to do. Have campaigns, against the United Kingdom's rule anywhere you can, in any way, shape, or form that you like. It doesn't matter. The more of it that happens in more places, then the
Correct.
bigger the becomes. Eventually, you have everybody doing it. When you have everybody doing it, the entire country comes to a grinding, shuddering halt because it just can't function anymore as a part of the United Kingdom. It then
That's right.
becomes a country which is in crisis of its own making. It's provoking a crisis to get it free. That's how countries win free. It's always been the
Exactly.
way. Hard road, but if you want freedom, sometimes you've got to make a few minor sacrifices yourself, to your own lifestyle, your own
Mhm.
pocketbook, in order. So, I mean, you
But
and I
Gordon,
both know we've been doing this a long time, that we give a this amount of energy and effort and time to doing what we do. And we
Mhm.
do it not because we're pessimistic, but because we are optimistic and we are trying to encourage other people to feel the same way.
Gordon, I'll tell you, we do it because we love our country. This country's given us a hell of a lot, and it continues to give. But we're seeing our values and our democracy eroded slowly but surely, and we're
Yeah.
becoming poorer and worthless for all that. When it comes to the point, there's something you said, you would have to give up quite a lot. You don't have to actually. You have to give up a wee bit of your time. Get out of your house. Come off all these
Yeah.
social. I tell you what, the best thing I ever done. I came off X, and my life has changed completely. I'm
Yeah, I
telling you,
agree.
Gordon. I get up and I promise you this. I used to get up in the morning, check my phone for messages. See now, I'm not on X. I don't check anything. I just get up and I go for a walk, and I meet
I
people.
I
It's
have, yeah.
better.
I've done the same thing. I maintained my X account, but what I do is I just look in at it now and again to see what people are saying. I'm not participating in it anymore. I'm staying out of it because it is just a massive bear pit of people arguing and calling each other names constantly,
Yeah.
scoring political points, not getting any further forward, not advancing the cause in any way other than venting their spleen at somebody. That doesn't get you anywhere. You know,
Here's the thing,
but
Gordon. When you put
get mad, get even. That's really what we're talking about.
correct, what look at the enemies. Elon Musk is not your friend. You can, even Caledon. When I put a plate of food, the wife will make me a plate of food and I'll take a photo of it on Twitter. It'll get thousands of views. When I put something about Caledon Radio, it's in an algorithm, so it doesn't get shared. And only about 70, maybe 70 max will like it. And there's about 30,000 views, but only some people will share it. So what is going on? You're being stymied. The independence movement is being crushed by social media. It is,
all
Gordon.
all
Aye,
political of any kind is basically squeezed out of existence by algorithm. Yeah,
aye. And the thing is, for your own health, I would say to everybody watching this, come off X, just deactivate your accounts, get into the real world, and start helping build up the case for a new Scotland that you know is there waiting for us.
exactly, Nori. Listen, I think that is the perfect place to end this belated second half of the show today. The sun has finally come out in Glasgow, and I am about to go off duty for the next week or so. I'm away on holiday,
Oh,
and
where are you going?
yeah, I'm visiting Northumberland for a week,
Oh, nice
and
one.
it's a part of England I really love to visit because it's
Yeah.
unspoiled, not overly developed, and the people there are
Yet.
really nice. Yeah, so I'll be away. I'll be back again on the 17th. I'm back in action in the car, so I will be
Right.
back in touch. I'll keep my finger on the pulse. I might make the odd show here and there over the next 10 days
Aye.
just to
Well,
keep.
keep me posted, Gordon, because I'll collect some stuff. We didn't go over some of the comments from last week, which were really exciting, incredible. So maybe we should do that. Look at the comments and bring them back the week after.
Yeah, why don't we do a specific comments program on the things that people have said over the last few weeks about the
Yeah,
topics, and we'll
yeah,
pick
we
and
should do
choose
that.
what are the most interesting. because I'm sure
Aye,
other people want their voices heard as well. Don't just want
correct,
to listen to you, have them.
correct. I would be
Yeah,
well up for that, Gordon, because I think that's a really important thing you've just said. A standalone program giving people a mention for their amazingly good intellectual, educational comments. Let's bring them all. Let's bring everybody into this, and
yeah,
let's all have a big, huge party with it. You know.
yeah. Let's do a bumper summer special when I come back. What the Beano used to do.
I'm up for that.
Bumper summer special. Yeah.
That's what we'll call it, Gordon. That's what we'll call it. Listen, I'll let you
Oh,
go and have a great weekend and a great holiday because you deserve it, mate. You need to unwind. I've done it. I've come back a scrap Caledon. I went mad, but I'm enjoying my life to the full. I'm going. This is best I've ever felt, Gordon. Seriously.
I'm glad to hear it, Nori. I'll be back in action anyway in about 2 weeks. But
2 weeks.
everybody, get out there and do something. That's my advice.
Mine too. Mine too. Get out there. Come on. Just get together. Even if
Yeah,
it's meeting somebody for a coffee and chatting about Scotland, do it because somebody will eavesdrop, somebody will hear you, and somebody will get inspiration from you just talking about it in a cafe or a pub, anywhere. Talk, talk, talk. We can do it,
yeah.
Gordon. We can do
All
it.
right. I'll see you when I get back. Okay.
Right, right. We'll get off the line then, and I'll be here till Kingdom
Thank
Come.
you for watching the show, and I'll see you soon. Bye for
Cheers,
now.
Gordon. All the best. Cheers now.